Hi, this is Al of Resurrections, an Adam Warlock and Thanos podcast, and proud member of the collective, and you're listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 227. I'm your Hyper Conchu, Ray. G'day, how you going? And joining me again, back in the chair, back ready to review a comic is Andrew Shaw. Andrew, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back after last time. It's nice to know that you actually wanted me to come back.
Well, you know, for sure. I mean, you're a huge Moon Knight fan, and we have got a humdinger, as they say, for this episode. So, Loonies, if you look up into the night sky, it is a waxing crescent, and that means it is our LUNAR-PICK, a modern run review. So, a comic from 2000s onwards, and we're going to be looking at Moon Knight Special Edition number 1 featuring Shang-Chi. This should be a brilliant, interesting discussion. As always, a big thank you to our gracious patronies listed as co-producers and executive producers on the episodes. And yeah, patronies can be seen in the show description as well. They're all credited there. So a big thank you to Daniel, Justin, Derek, Kyle, Wayne, Jordan, Josh, James, Anthony, and Michael. Also, Fringe Knight by Daniel, doing an original indie comic based on Erie, Pennsylvania's very own mysterious superhero. Go check out his GoFundMe. It's going well. And finally, Hello Headphones, empowering gamers to play at their best, and Dreamland Comics, the superhero superstore. Okay, Andrew, I know you have your floppy ready at the ready.
Ready to roll.
There it is. Let's dive into it. So, Loonies, for those that have just joined and unfamiliar with what we're doing, we're going to go through giving some credits to Moon Knight Special Edition Volume 1, Issue 1. And they are, I might as well just say it now, released October 1992. And it actually had 2 stories in there, Andrew. So I'm hoping the second story we can just really briefly just talk about. So the first one, Explosion at the Center of a Madman's Crown. Writer Doug Moench, penciler Art Nichols Inker, Chris Ivy, colorist Mike Thomas, and letterer John Costanza. Now the backup story is Moon Blight, the motion picture. Writer Michael Higgins, penciler Marie Severin and Inker, and colorist as well. Mm-hmm. And Michael Higgins comes back and he letters it as well. So it's a 2-person team. Now available, this as those that have video, you can see Andrew has the floppy version, but it's also available on digital and can be seen on Marvel Unlimited. I haven't checked that out, but I reckon it is there. So Loonies, what we'll do for those that don't know, we'll go through a bare bones, and that's a summary. So in case you haven't read the comic but just want a summary of it so you know what we're going to be talking about, we'll go through that. And then, I guess overall first impressions, and then we'll dive into some aspects. Now, this ranges from writing, art, themes, characterizations, and references to any other runs. And we'll cap it off, Andrew, with a moon rating. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar. We have 2 moon rating systems. One is the vanilla rating, and one is the Connoisseurs rating system. He was my OG co-host back in the day, and he's given me a nice rating system there. Trademark, of course. So I'd like to ask you, Andrew, which rating system would you like to choose from?
Ooh, they're both very good. I'm gonna have to go with the vanilla rating though.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna go with the moons. Although I do really like the Connoisseur one.
Connoisseur ones are good. They're a bit.
There's a couple that I don't want to really shout out with my kids in the other room.
Well, that's only if the comic's that good, right?
That's it.
or that bad.
Or that bad, yes.
Yeah, so anyway, let's get to it. Andrew, now, I haven't really prepped you for this. I've just put your initials in the prompt sheet.
Oh, that's all right.
Are you okay to read a bit of the bare bones?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Well, here it is. Moon Knight Special Edition, Volume 1, Issue 1.
Brynocki used voice projectors and robots to give the impression that Mordillo was still alive and speaking. He used this ruse to fool impressionable people into believing that his master had overcome death. The fools created a cult to worship Mordillo called the Golden Dawn, and I'm pretty sure that was a real cult too at some point, the Golden Dawn.
Really?
It does sound very familiar. Yeah.
Oh, God.
According to Blackjack Tar, the cult is bilking money from its members and brainwashing them into becoming sleeper agents. They are trained to become custom-made terrorists who will eventually be released against targets in Europe, Japan, and the United States of America.
Moon Knight and Shang-Chi joined forces to investigate the cult, since several youths have been recruited into the cult and disappeared. Among them is a trainee of Spectre Corps' London division who absconded with embezzled funds from the company and possibly industrial secrets as well. The heroes make their way through Brynocki's traps and robotic attacks. They discover Mordillo's skeleton sitting upon a platform, and the heroes destroy the platform, revealing Brynocki, who is hiding beneath it. The cultists are disillusioned and come back to their senses. Brynocki attack the two heroes, but a swift kick from Shang-Chi decapitates him. To escape capture, Brynocki activates a self-destruct mechanism, blowing himself and the skeleton to pieces. There you go, Looney. So that was a brief, courtesy of Wiki, a nice little brief synopsis, a brief bare bones to get you in the mood. Now, Andrew, overall impressions. Now, before we dive into particular notes and facts about this issue, what did you make of this weird pairing?
It definitely is. But it reminds me of the what was it? The Marvel 2-in-1 and the Spider-Man and the Thing book as well, the Marvel team-up books.
Yep.
Yeah, team-up and 2-in-1 where, those ones were predominantly Spider-Man teaming up or the Thing teaming up with somebody. And it just had that feel to it. It was like two strange pair together stopping some villain. And it has no bearing on... It probably has more bearing on Shang-Chi's history more than Moon Knight's. Mm-hmm. It's sort of just Moon Knight was in the right place at the right time to team up with him. And... yeah, it just has that real feel to it. Like it's not a nothing story. It's not a throwaway story. It's just a fun little adventure we get, and then it's not something we have to dwell on. We just off we go again to the next story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. With that regards, look, when I first read this, I was massively deflated and disappointed with it. But having said that, since I've read a lot of Masters of Kung Fu. Namely the Doug Moench and the Paul Gulacy, the fantastic run back in the 70s, 80s. That was just stellar. And so this calls back to a lot of that. And as you say, a lot of this is really Shang-Chi centric. Mm-hmm. And I actually appreciated this a lot more after having read the stories in Masters of Kung Fu, which ties into this. So it's not as random as it seems, but I think there are still some shortcomings to this issue which kind of hindered it to make it, any better than what it ended up being. It's a nice comparison that you say to a Marvel team-up or a Marvel 2-in-1. I didn't really consider that, but you're right. I just saw it as a special edition. So I think with that though comes some expectations. If you've got like this special one-off thing, and you really have to deliver if you're gonna give a special one-off. Unless of course this is just a cash cow and they're hoping to just rake in something. But I guess we'll get into it. So. Andrew, any first big notes to the story, or what your thoughts are to kick us off?
I think the biggest thing I noticed, was like you usually do with most comics, it's the art. And I wasn't overly wrapped in the art. I think it feels a little rushed. It almost feels like this was supposed to be a backup story in something else, and they pushed it out as Mark Spector Moon Knight was doing okay. Let's put an annual. It's supposed to be like an annual, but it's a special edition. We'll chuck this out there so that we can. People wanted more Moon Knight books. Let's just do that real quick. But I don't know. It's that you only see him. You see Mark in like a couple, 2 pages as Mark.
Yeah.
And that's rough. Like he looks really rough. I don't
think you're being kind there.
Badly. Yeah, I don't like to talk badly about comics because
Yeah, of course.
People put their effort into it, but it's just. It seems more like an indie book than it does a Marvel book, if that makes sense. Like it looks like a book that I would buy this. If it was an indie artist working on it and you bought it, I'd go, yep, cool. It's, it's a guy who's probably, this is not his full-time job. He's getting, he's doing this and being something else at the same time, so he doesn't have the time to really sit down and do it. Where this is a book for Marvel, and you go, what's that? Like, I'm looking at the one page, the page where it's got Mark talking to people about the Golden Dawn, and Mark looks different in every panel.
Yeah.
It's really inconsistent, unfortunately, and that's probably a bit of a letdown with something like this.
Yep. It's something that we take for granted, I guess, as readers, that artists will, number one, will make the character consistent in look. Number two, taking it a step further, to give each of the characters a distinct look, so there's not just, look, again, you've made me self-conscious now, Andrew, about throwing shade on an artist, but a fantastic artist in his own right. I brought it up for a couple of times, Frank Cho. Fantastic artist. But to me, his faces, they're all the same. Yep. So those sorts of things, that will kind of elevate an artist above, when you can actually give nuances and character to each of the characters. Unfortunately, I think Art Nichols does that to an extent here. I think Shang-Chi, for the most part, looks consistent, which is good. And I've got to say, look, I've got a little pet peeve. Sometimes Asian characters don't look Asian in comic books. At least he looks Asian here, so that's really cool. But the art, I'd have to say it wasn't one of my favorites. Having said that, though, 1992, I'm just trying to cast my mind back to that time. There were a lot of comics out there with this sort of I don't want to say rush style, but this sort of just like very generic, simplified art. I'm not saying that that's any good, but I'm just saying that it, or bad. I'm just saying that it's part of the time. And maybe that's where it sits in. But looking back, definitely it hasn't dated well. And I was just thinking, and I brought it up before, but like, oh man, this is a continuation of a title that Moench had written, and he'd written Moon Knight as well. He had Paul Gulacy on art for Masters of Kung Fu.
Yeah.
I reckon, as crazy as this story was, if there was like a Gulacy drawing this, he could pull it off. I reckon he might pull it off, and I might be a bit more lenient towards this issue, but I think the art really does pull it down, and it does make it look like I'm sorry to say, but it does look like a cheaper version than probably what it could be.
100%.
So we haven't kicked off well so far, Andrew, with the art. I mean, there's a few funky things. I mean, if we're sticking with art as well, there's some really cool things that I guess Art Nichols gets to embellish on. I mean, we get to that crazy island. I can't even remember what it's called, but this whole place. And I'm gonna jump to it now. So what we alluded to before, listeners. So this heavily references Master of Kung Fu issues 33 to 35. And it's basically, and it was really well done. It was like a James Bond-esque kind of tale where Shang-Chi goes into this island and it is crazy bonkers, exactly as you see it in this issue. There's Brynocki gets introduced there as well. He's some crazy robot who looks like a cartoon. So that's all set up in Master of Kung Fu 33 to 35. Now, for anyone coming into this special edition cold and just getting that reveal of Brynocki at the end, I reckon you would have just been like thrown off or, or throwing up. It's such a weird thing. But, so reference-wise, this very much ties into Master of Kung Fu. So I just wanted to point that out.
And Marvel's usually really good with putting in the asterisks and the in issue Master of Kung Fu issue such and such, and it's not in here.
It's not.
I've looked over it a few times, so it's not like you can say, "Hey, if you want to know where this is or what's going on, go back here." And they're usually really on top of it.
Yes.
But they must have just missed it in this one, unfortunately, which doesn't help.
Exactly, and I would have, and considering that, again, as I said, Moench wrote both Master of Kung Fu and Moon Knight. I mean, you've just got to ask the writer. Like, what's all this crazy stuff you're doing? Oh, yeah, I did it back in whatever. Okay, put that in the editor's note. But, going back to my other point, Art Nichols, what he gets to do is he gets to have fun with this island. You know, granted, whether or not you like it, the Pointer Brothers, those spiky dudes at the end, there's just some weird wacky stuff. There's a huge brain, you know, within a pyramid with all there are mummies with, I think one of the loonies said online, mummies with sunglasses. What's going on? So it's on the front cover. So, you know, he gets to branch out in that regard. But I totally agree with you with his Mark Spector. Not the best. Yeah.
I think one of my biggest problems too is that there's a scene where they're walking down a corridor and there's wooden stakes shooting out.
Yep.
And Shang-Chi's still got his full uniform on, and then they get to the next the next page, he's got no shirt on.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it just sort of. But then if you look at it, like at the top panel, he's got no shirt, but then there's two panels in the middle where he is wearing his shirt, and then the bottom panel he's got no shirt on again, and it's like.
Come on, that's schoolboy error right
there. Yeah, it's a bit baffling actually. Like it's one of those things where I would think someone would like that's a pretty glaring omission. You know, it's just
it kind of begs the question. I think what you alluded to before, perhaps this might have been a rush job. You know, the editors, let's just get this out. You know, the popularity is high. You know, we can put this on the stands.
We need a certain amount of books out this week. This date. Doug, have you got anything? I've got this short story here, chuck it in. And they, let's give this kid a go because he's, you know, up and coming or something, chuck it on and off we go. And it's
never how you want your comics to kind of get started. Like let's do a filler, you know, let's see if we can. So not much happening there with the art, the layouts. I think essentially, layout wise, I think there's nothing wrong with the layouts of the pages. It's pretty solid for the most part. Nothing too crazy as well. So we see a lot with the Bill Sienkiewicz and the Moench run in the 80s with Moon Knight. Bill just really
comics.
Yeah, he packs in a lot of panels, but he plays with how they kind of work and they flow together. And he works with the angles, he works with straight lines. This is pretty much conventional, but I can't really fault it for anything layout wise. I
think the art actually gets better towards the end of the story, though. Like once you get to inside the pyramid, and he's got the teenagers that have been kidnapped. They all have different looks. They all look consistent too. So it's sort of almost like he was. It's hard to say whether he did it out of order, like it was written out of order, so he drew it, and then the last couple of pages was we need or it was a story that Doug had, and they went, we got to add a beginning and an end to it, quick. Tack on this, like he started writing the story, we've got to add this, and then they just had to rush out the first couple of pages, which would make a bit more sense because once you get really into it, it actually looks, there's a couple of really nice pages in here.
Well, again, that maybe also feeds into, into, I guess, the storytelling as well, because it seems it's a bit weird. There's two things happening at once. There's this kind of mystery of so Shang-Chi and Moon Knight want to figure out who's reactivated this island because Mordillo is, for all intents, he's full on dead by the end of Master of Kung Fu. So there's that mystery, but there's also the mystery of this mind cult. And I love the idea that Blackjack Tar says to Shang-Chi, well, you know, these guys, they're getting brainwashed, you know, taken advantage of, but they could become sleeper agents. And that's, I think for me, that's a real threat, you know? So
definitely.
You've got this threat of trying to stop this, but also, and Moon Knight says it as well. Once he understands it's not only trying to find that ex-Spectre Corps trainee, but once he finds the madness of that island and what they're doing, he's invested into it, you know. So there's some good, I guess there's some good plots and I guess motives in there, but it kind of falls away a bit for me towards the end. So I'm not sure if that again feeds to what you're saying, Andrew, about maybe they kind of chopped and changed this story, because we never really get to see. It's not resolved what happened to the Spectre Corps employee, which Mark wanted to go there to look for. You know, it just started to evolve into this big reveal of Brynocki, and that's it. And the cultists even as well, like they even say towards the end, they're beyond help, and they kind of just left it at that. It's like, but aren't you going to help him? Like,
it seems like a story that was maybe supposed to be part of the Master of Kung Fu run, and they just never got the time to do it. and it's sort of like he's just slapped it all together because when you're reading it, like there's a bigger story in here. There's a lot more that could have been put in. This could have been like a 3 or 4 issue run with this story of kidnapping teenagers to do this sort of stuff, and it just seems a bit not slapped together, but he's just tried to put 3 or 4 issues of story into effectively half an issue.
That's a great point. I reckon I can actually see this being a multi-issue at least. It would start to then really read like a Master of Kung Fu comic, where there's a little bit more investigating. There's a little bit more smoke screens here and there. So yeah, I mean, but again, I think it's been, and I think one of the other, I guess, what do you call it? One of the other things that kind of falls by the wayside is the use of Moon Knight,
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
This is really strange though, because as we both clearly defined, this is very much a Shang-Chi thing. So why is it called Moon Knight Special Edition? Because he very much he does have such a light role in this. Like
he doesn't need to be there. Like you could take him out of the story, and except for it being a Spectre Corp employee, there's really no reason for him to be there. Actually, you could almost put any other hero in there, or not a hero at all.
Just have Shang-Chi. You're right. You can just have Shang-Chi. That's crazy. Exactly. There is actually no reason for him to do it because, like, he goes to look for those dossiers at the beginning that were too highly confidential, and Shang-Chi is there already. you know, the only thing he provides the transportation. I've got planes and a parachute, so they get to go to the island. Other than that, he's there fighting. I'm sure Shang-Chi could take on the whole thing himself.
Yeah.
That's crazy, isn't it? That's I didn't consider that, but that's really thrown that off there with Mooney. How did you find Moon Knight's characterization in this?
I think he's pretty consistent with how he was at the time, and I think Doug Moench writing him, he's got, he, like we said, he wrote him from the start pretty much. And so he's got a really good handle on the character, and it's a lot of the way he talks, he's a bit of a he's a bit cocky. He's got some, okay lines in there, but it's, like I said, if he wasn't there, you wouldn't notice that there wasn't someone else there. That's the big problem, I think, too. I think, like we've discussed, that it's an issue that was supposed to be all about Shang-Chi, and I guess maybe Moon Knight was selling, like there wasn't a Shang-Chi book at the time, and Moon Knight was probably selling okay. Yeah. So, hey, chuck Moon Knight in this book. Let's put him on the cover and make it his book, and then we can, you can tie up a little of a loose end from your old Shang-Chi run.
Yeah, I think pretty much that's it. I mean, you've hit some good points there as well. I do think at first I thought that like his characterizations were a bit off in that he was just really kind of like a bit more lighter in that. But having said that, the 90s run, I think he does hold true to that run. But interestingly enough, though, Andrew, Moench hadn't written him in the 90s at all. So he's jumping on with this new iteration of Moon Knight, complete with adamantium suit and wrist blasters. So this is a very different Moon Knight to what Moench is. Yeah, to what Moench is used to. Yeah. So I think he actually did a fair go at it, with albeit a character that he'd written for years, but a very different iteration of that character. So, I was a bit put off by the way, I don't know, I guess mostly because he was just tagging along, as we were saying. And there's this little bit I just have to laugh at. They go down some massive stairs to like the River Styx, and there's this robotic kind of boatman there, and he goes, "You must pay a price." And Moon Knight says something like, "Oh, what? Like a kick?" It just kicks him into the water. It's like, So I don't know. Some of the writing's a bit weird. I know Doug Moench has mentioned he very much loved to write without, bells and whistles and superpowers and stuff. Maybe he felt slightly out of his element. But having said that as well, again, I draw back to the Master of Kung Fu 33 to 35. So he's written this before. But yeah, I think it's, very much, let's shoehorn Moon Knight in here, and let's give him the titular, title, the name. How about Shang-Chi's? Are you familiar with much of his character and his canon?
Yeah, I've got a good run,
Okay.
not a complete run, but a good run of the Master of Kung Fu series in floppy issues. It was one of those ones where I was challenged. I thought I'll try and get as many of these as I can. And now, this was a few years ago, and now with the movie coming out, I think it's going to be a bit harder to complete that collection now. And it's probably the same with Moon Knight collectors now too. Like, it's going to be so much harder.
I know.
But there's a lot, like you said, it's a really good. It's a martial arts book, but it's like a James Bond spy MI6. Like, it's a really fun book. And it's really so much good. Fun. It's so well written, and it's deep, and it doesn't rush through stories in a good way. It's not let's do 6 issues to tell the origin of Spider-Man when everyone already knows it. It's we're going to take 6 issues to tell out this story, but it adds weight to it, and it shows exactly what it needs to for the whole story. And and so I think he's probably a little bit more consistent with him in this one than probably Moon Knight. He writes Shang-Chi a bit more like he did then, but he's very. I can't see him as a very hard character to write, in that he's very stoic. So you don't have to dream up any flashy one-liners for him or anything. You just have to keep him very level.
Yep.
And so it's probably not a very difficult character to write. It's probably more the people around him that are the harder part, where they have to react to him.
Yep. Yeah, stoic in uppercase. I think. I mean, I'm no writer, but I reckon he'd be dead easy to write because. But I mean, having said that, Moench writes him very well, and again, I can't recommend enough Master of Kung Fu, the series. It is phenomenal. You'll get drawn into this world. You might be a lot, umming and ahhing the first few issues, but once you get hooked. It's a fantastic ride, and Moench does a brilliant piece with it. But yeah, Shang-Chi, I think he is pretty much accurate as well. As you say, there's not too much to it. But not really much else to say about that. Now we've got these other. So have you read that arc, 33, 35, with Brynocki and Mordillo?
I think so. It did, when the character popped up. It's been a while since I've read them. When the character popped up, I sort of went, oh yeah, I remember that weird robot thing. Okay, yeah. It was sort of, it triggered some kind of memory in there. Yeah, so it was like, I wasn't completely lost, but I can see how, if you've never read anything like that, you would just sort of go, I have no idea who this is. Yeah.
I mean, and so listeners, a little bit of a background to it. So there's this villain called Mordillo. He had this island. He wanted to, from memory, it's been a while since I read it as well, but he wanted to kind of rule the world or something, somehow harness, I guess, this great power. I can't remember whether it's from the sun or something. He had these grand plans, and he had this crazy island. He had a robot servant, Brynocki, who we see serves him faithfully. At the end, he gets literally incinerated, I think, through the fight with Shang-Chi. Nothing left but bones. So that's what you see in this issue. And the last panel of that arc is Brynocki just cradling the skeleton, and they all leave the island, and it's kind of a cool ending because you just think, oh, this robot's it's so devoted to its master, and he's clearly dead, but he's just going to be there forever. Like, kind of like that, those stories about dogs that wait for their masters that have died at train stations. Drama episode. Yeah. It's something like along those lines. So it was a really cool ending. But we see him here. He's obviously taken it a step further. He's dressed up his bones of his former master, and he's done like almost a Wizard of Oz thing. How did you think, in the limited time that Brynocki was in this issue, was he done well? Was he a good villain? What are your thoughts on this? Definitely a strange villain. I think and again, like, it's the reveal where it's, oh, it's Brynocki, and you're like, if you don't know who it is, it means nothing, It honestly means nothing to you. So it's sort of, it works if you know Master of Kung Fu, but otherwise it's, I think I expected something different, but I think if you're a Master of Kung Fu fan, it makes sense. If you're a Moon Knight fan, you would be completely lost, and it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. It's a pretty obscure reference. Like, we're talking about, at the time, it's probably a maybe 12 to 15 year old gap between whenever that story was until when this one was released. So you've got to be pretty on the pulse to actually know, to know Brynocki, go, oh shit, it's Brynocki. Oh my God. You know, you'd think most of the people, as you say, the Moon Knight fans would just be going, what the hell is this bloody crazy thing? So, I
want to hear from somebody who, before even reading the panel, was like, oh, it's Brynocki.
I would love that.
There's got to be someone out there.
Oh, there's got to be. We've got to reach out to the Master of Kung Fu fan club. I'm sure they would. But we get these very interesting. I'm just going to rattle off some of these characters. So we mentioned Brynocki's the main one. We get robotic bats, Andrew, with lisps.
Yeah.
Now, am I missing something here? Was this just a random insert to try to be funny? Because
I think so.
It came on. It didn't. I don't think it worked ultimately.
No, I think it was just trying to be a bit different. Like having Brynocki. Like I kind of expected Brynocki to have the lisp, like it was his voice coming out of them, which didn't happen either. So I think
that would make sense.
Yeah, I think it was just a bit of a. Oh, let's have a bit of fun with it, sort of thing.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Then we have the mummies, as I mentioned, coming out of the pyramids. At least a little something that the Moon Knight fans can kind of relate to Egyptology. But and again, finally the Pointer brothers. Not
the Pointer sisters.
Not the Pointer. But actually, I'm missing, of course, Blackjack Tar. I mean, he was done pretty well. He's usually he's kind of like a surly, for me, character, maybe akin to Dum Dum Dugan. In that sense. He's kind of really macho, kind of hot-headed. So I think, again, in the limited capacity that he was, he did kind of well. I don't know. Any other final thoughts for this one?
I think the book in general, I mean, the second story we'll talk about is a bit strange as well, but it's one of those ones where if you're only a casual fan of Moon Knight, you probably don't need to read it. It doesn't advance anything. It doesn't change anything in his history. I think but if you're a completist, definitely worth picking up. I think my favourite part of the whole book is the mini posters, the cover gallery right in between the two stories.
Absolutely. I just, on the iPad, actually, I screenshot all of them because they're beautiful. They're nice.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. And you've got, Gene Colan and, Don Heck and Ty Templeton and Ron Friends and Joe Sinnott. And,
Ron Friends, freaking hell.
John Romita doing a Moon Knight cover. Like, it's the best. It's the best part of the book, unfortunately.
I think that is that you're not wrong there. Also, as well, I just wanted to get your thoughts as well because I just wanted to cap this story off with. So when you first came across Moon Knight Special Edition and you saw Moon Knight and Shang-Chi on the front cover, what were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was going to be an epic martial arts.
Yeah, me too.
Big schlocky 70s, beat 'em up. Something that Quentin Tarantino would recommend to you if you ever met him at somewhere, and it's really not.
I was kind of dangling the carrot there. Me too. I had high hopes for this when I first saw it. Going awesome, my God! I love Shang-Chi as well. I think it's pretty cool. Yeah. Get to finally see them together. Let's see what happens. The art and everything that we've mentioned previously kind of derailed that. Now, just briefly, I guess there's a backup story as well. Moon Blight, the motion picture. Look, I just frame this, Andrew, as it's kind of like a Brand Eck thing, or what the kind of thing. What did you make of it?
I think it holds a bit more weight now that there's a TV show coming out. I think
true.
It's a bit more of a laugh on that because I can see when you read it and they're talking about, we'll get Schwarzenegger to play him and Bill Cosby will play his sidekick, which is like in 2021, it's the tug the collar. But then they talk about Eddie Murphy and Harrison Ford and like it's very of its time, the actors that were big, Whoopi Goldberg, and we'll get the joke I did kind of like, and you said it before, you don't like to mention that other. But we'll get Michael Keaton to play him and his parents will be murdered and he'll be killed by some joker. And it's like, well, that's pretty funny. I like that joke. But it's a Brand Eck. It's a it doesn't hold any weight. It doesn't,
No.
it's just a bit of a laugh, and it's making, I've always liked that Marvel have a bit more of a sense of humor about their characters than other companies, and they're a bit more likely to poke fun at what they do with the characters.
Yep.
So they're more likely to point out that, yeah, you know what, this is a bit goofy, or this, this guy's powers, Wayne with the moon, are a bit strange, but we'll have a bit of fun with it, and they've always been like that, which I've always liked about Marvel.
Yeah, no, me too as well. Just with all those famous faces, it kind of reminded me of Mad Magazine. You know how they kind of
definitely
really send those things up. No, absolutely. I laughed at that reference of Michael Keaton and stuff, but a little bit of me was going, oh my God, I'm hoping no one catches wind of this, because if someone posts this up on the internet, it's just those endless comparisons are going to happen again.
Yep.
And it's like, no way. But I think it was good. Very similar, as you said, Brand Eck and all that. Just packed full of information. Like, those are always just fun reads, because you can just pore over each of those panels and the dialogue and stuff. And a lot of it is nonsensical, just gibberish. There's that director, but it's funny, and it was something I didn't expect at the end of this special edition. But I guess you've got to make the issue special, right? So let's make it bumper size and let's give you a second story. It's a nice treat to have Marie Severin as well, like legend of the industry.
Absolutely.
Being
and her
part
caricatures are so spot on too.
Really cool.
The one that made me laugh was the Dean Martin singing "That's
yeah.
Amore," and whoever thought you'd see a buff Dean Martin, but it's so spot on. Like, it's perfect. Her art is great. Like, she's so good at the serious stuff, but she's very, very good at also the Mad Magazine sort of inspired stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen her stuff from the Incredible Hulk and Spider-Woman, and she's a great artist. Fantastic. I guess that may aid the overall score of this, Andrew, that backup story, or those posters in the middle may aid it. But if we're to look overall at the whole special edition, what can I stamp you down as for Moon Knight Special Edition Volume 1, Issue 1, starring Shang-Chi?
If it was based on the first story alone, we'd be looking at like a quarter moon, I think. I'm pretty harsh on it. I'm going to bump it up to a half moon based solely on those posters, pinups in the middle, because you've got some of the absolute legends of the industry there, and it's like I said, it's a book for a completist. But also, if you want to see John Romita draw Moon Knight, then it's probably worth the $3, $4 this is going to cost you in some shops.
True. So sorry, Andrew, I was just plugging that in there, so I don't want to forget. So you've given it a half a moon, 5 out of 10 overall. That's a fairly worthy score. Look, I put mine in there as well. Unfortunately, it's not as fun. The Conishue's rating system, half the moon, same thing, 5 out of 10 as well. I just struck a line down the middle. I was actually. And the backup story and the posters did bump it up. It was going to be a 4.5 out of 5 out of 10 for me. But I just feel that little bit of enjoyment with the backup story, Moon Blight, and the posters just helped it prop up. This is something I might read again if I want to read that arc in The Master of Kung Fu, but I don't see myself revisiting this. I think, as you say, it's there to probably tick the box this is part of the collection. And look, I've already, as I said, screenshot those posters, so I've got copies that I don't need to open it again. So a 5 out of 10. So Loony listeners, that is our review, a discussion of this featuring Shang-Chi, a nice clean 5 out of 10 average. I usually say go check it out. I'll just say leave it to your discretion. Judge for yourself. And if you've got plenty of time, hey, you might be in lockdown like Andrew or myself. You've got plenty of hours to kill. Maybe this will knock off half an hour or something. But there you go, Loony listeners. Well, we'll just take a quick short break now. And then, how about Andrew? We've just got some feedback to round off this show, and see what the Loony listeners had to say about this issue.
Hello, I'm Alan.
I'm Rebecca.
And if you're listening to this, then we recommend that you check out our podcast, the DCAU Podcast, where we watch the original DC animated movies, starting from Batman Mask of the Phantasm and continuing on to Justice League Dark, Apocalypse War, and beyond. And we will cover such heroes as Batman,
Superman,
the Batman,
Wonder Woman,
Victorian Steampunk Batman,
The Flash,
Batman Beyond,
Green Lantern,
Old Man Batman,
Martian Manhunter.
and plenty more versions of Batman.
Lots and lots and lots of Batman.
You can find the DCAU podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you can get podcasts by looking up the DCAU podcast and subscribe today.
Hi, this is Ian Adama, the writer and director of the fan film Moon Knight Origins. You're listening to the Into the Night Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. You're listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 227, and you just heard a very heated discussion between Andrew and myself of Moon Knight, featuring Shang-Chi, his special edition number 1. Now, Andrew, before we round off this episode, we've got some feedback here. So, I want to do right by you as a guest. So, would you be able to do the big one? I can again kick us off.
Sure.
Yep. Okay. And then we'll just chop and change again between the two. I think that. So from Instagram again, Make Mine Moon Knight. He writes in and says, the story and art both just didn't do it for me enough to enjoy this one. The thing I really like about it is the extra stuff in the back. Hey, like the fake covers from different eras in comics, as if Moon Knight's been around since the Golden Age. Yeah. Make Mine Moon Knight. I do believe. Please. I hope I'm not wrong. That is Sandy, Loony Sandy. So thank you for that. Yeah, pretty much echoing our sentiments there, Andrew.
Yep, pretty much. Josh Johnson on the Facebook group. I've had this issue for a few years now, but I've been waiting until you inevitably were going to cover it on the show for me to read it. And wow, this is definitely not what I expected. I think we said the same thing. I had high expectations since Moench is back writing, and these were two of the big characters he wrote in the 70s. I haven't read anything of Shang-Chi prior to this, and I thought he was interesting. As for Mooney, it seemed like you could swap him out for Deadpool and the story would be the exact same, maybe even more fitting. While MK can be a little quippy, it was a really weird him being used as a comic relief. In fact, this whole issue just seems like it was made up of meme templates. And I definitely didn't understand the ending or the villain. A real-life cartoon character, huh? Outside of the team-up itself, there wasn't a lot I liked about the story. The art was pretty solid all around, though. Probably my favourite part of the issue was all the backup material, a handful of Silver Age-inspired Moon Knight covers, and a goofy story about making a Moon Knight movie. Fun stuff, but main story of this issue is not very good. I'd rate it a waxing crescent last quarter moon, 4 out of 10.
Yes, thank you, Josh. Josh Geronimo Johnson, one of our valued loonies, and Patroni as well. Josh has been on the show, Andrew. He's co-hosted. He's actually even hosted a couple when I've had to take a break. So yeah, Josh is really good value. I like to call him the custodian as well. He knows his 80s, I think 70s shizzle, so he's pretty good. But Josh clearly had not read any Master of Kung Fu. Brynocki just threw him. I think he did exactly what we were anticipating any Moon Knight fan would do. But yeah, Josh, absolutely can't agree with you more. I'm just quickly going through here. Yeah, I like Andrew's take on it. I mean, you said he could be replaced by Deadpool. I think, Andrew, you've hit it on the head. You could just even take Moon Knight. You can take a character out and it can just be a Shang-Chi adventure. I think it really works well. It probably even works better. So thank you for that. And again, similar sentiments with the backup material. Next up, we have another Patroni as well. Justin the Owl Osgood. Justin was just on the show last week, Andrew. I really enjoyed this issue a lot. It was great to see Doug Moench pair two of his best creations together for this story, and the concept is so delightfully strange. I love the bizarre and colourful robots. I wouldn't call it the best Doug Moench story, but I still found it to be entertaining. The art was a little hit or miss. However, it would be great to see Moon Knight and Shang-Chi paired for a new story, especially with the former's big screen debut released in the very near future. I also like, well, both of them actually. Moon Knight and we're both getting them. I also liked the Silver Age Moon Knight covers. That was a nice lighter touch that we don't see a lot in Moon Knight comics in general. Yeah, absolutely. It's thank you, Justin. It's a great excuse, isn't it, to get great artists to just draw your favorite character. I reckon we need more of these covers, like in comics in general, or maybe even in annuals or something, you know. Yeah,
and not just as, very expensive variant covers, but just as backup material. You know, that's where all the fun stuff is,
Well, one of our the co-hosts as well, Rebecca, she quipped a while ago, I think on when we were talking to Jed, that wouldn't it be great to put all that beautiful artwork in the variants in the trade, but but with Moon Knight, with 40 plus variants, you'd have like 40 plus pages. So,
yeah, exactly. But you know what? I don't mind if you're going to bump it up by another $5 or something to put that in there. Like, that's fine by me. Or you collect it in, once, or just put out another book that was just the art.
Yeah.
Put out a 40-page issue that's, $7, and you pick it up. The completists like we are would pick it up for just the variant covers instead of paying $150 for one of the variants. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. It's too expensive. But I'm not even going to go there. So, yeah. All right. Why don't you take the last two? Sorry, Andrew.
Okay. I've got them. Cool. Yeah, beautiful. Vincent Mott, I can't help but think the author made him shoo those bats to poke fun at the redacted comparison.
Excellent. I like this. Thank you so much, Vincent. I think I didn't put that together. Did you pick up on that?
No, now I think of it, that makes a bit more sense. Yeah,
I think that's pretty hilarious, and it actually gives them a bit more purpose than just what I thought was random, just bats with lisps. So well done, Vincent.
And the final one, Blake Buxton. Wish I liked this book more. Should have been a kick-ass team up, and that's it's pretty much what we said as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Blake. I think you share a lot of Looney's thoughts on here. Thank you, Looney's one and all, for dropping in your thoughts. It was a very interesting issue. When I approached Andrew for the show, we knew it was going to be a modern run review. That the question was what to do. I mean, and look, Andrew as well. Like, if you are amenable to returning for future episodes, which you are more than welcome. I mean, it's fantastic having you on. Obviously, we've covered a fair bit in the 200 odd episodes. But if you want to pick, to say for instance, if you want to pick Houston's The Bottom issue 1, which we've covered a few times, absolutely don't mind recovering that as well, because different person, different views, different perspectives. I think that'd be good. But yeah, anyway, I don't know how I got into that, Andrew, honestly, but
no, that's fine. But there's so much, it's funny that you think of, Moon Knight's not a major character, but he's had so many runs and iterations that there's so much you can talk about. So there's always something in there.
And the beauty of it is, as well, each of those volumes is just so different. Like, you get people, okay, for sure, people have their favourites and they're not so favourite ones. But you can't deny that each of the creative teams that have come on board have actually tried to bring something different, while still respecting, to an extent, the canon, which I think is fantastic. So you have such disparate volumes between the two. And it looks like, I mean, again, no spoilers, but it looks like Jen McKay's is going to be another one, a very solid start. So, plenty to look forward to, Looney's, as well. So, well, I guess before we wrap it up, Andrew, is there anything that, for listeners that would have heard Andrew earlier in the week, Andrew is a creator and a writer, releases some indie stuff, horror-based. Anything you'd like to give a plug to, Andrew?
Cul-de-sac is an anthology I wrote with art by Will Playden, who's also an Australian, lives in country New South Wales. It's a horror anthology set in the 1950s. It's Australia, but it could be anywhere, really. And it plays on the idea that you don't know what your neighbours are doing behind closed doors. Like, they could be have prize roses that have a sinister origin, or they have, they could be people in disguise, or returned from the war and things like that. Like, it just plays up all that. And, the art is hand painted by Will. Like, it is gorgeous, and it took him. I always say to people, it took him 3 years to do, because he works full time, I work full time, and so he was up at 2 or 3 in the morning still painting these artworks, and I was working night shift telling him to go to bed because he needed to get up at 4 hours later to go to work. And so it was a labour of love, and we're so proud of the way it turned out. And it's available on Comixology for $3.99 on there, or as I said last episode as well, we do have lots of print copies left, but we sort of it goes through me. You just hit me up on social media for that, because we did have a website with, I think it was Etsy, and it was just costing us too much in other fees for it to be viable. And when it's just a 2-man operation, it's you want to. I'm not looking to make money off it, but I kind of want to break even for what we've already spent.
You don't want to lose money. Yeah, for sure.
So it's like it was cutting into our costs of what it was for us. So we're both got families and working full time and stuff like that as well. So it's a hobby more than anything. So it's just been fun, and the reception of it's been fantastic. And I love hearing from people talking about the book, because it just makes me proud of what we did.
Yeah, it's a fantastic read, Loonies. I've picked up a copy as well, and all the information, as always, will be in the show notes, where you can contact Andrew. Links to where you can buy like the digital version of Cul-de-sac, and so we'll put that all in there. Andrew, it is a great, for those that do like horror, or maybe those that aren't inclined for horror. It's something worth checking out. The artwork is brilliant. The stories are eerie as hell. I just love the because it is set in Australia, but for me, and as you said, it's in the 50s, so there's a particular vibe and style to the architecture of the Australia and the environment of Australia, which I think being Australian it comes across really, really nice. Sometimes when you're a local of where things are set, you kind of look at it and go, that's you cringe, because it's like, but this actually I think enhances that kind of spooky, eerie element, because it's in the 50s, because you've got that corrugated iron, that, it's really good as well. So,
it was one of those things that Will, he said he spent so much time Googling 1950s wallpaper and 1950s carpet patterns. And so a lot of it was so much research into the patterns of the cars that were there at the time, one of the pages has a blue Volkswagen Beetle in it from that time. Yep. And my mum bought the page off Will, because she goes, she had that car as a teenager. Wow. And he had I think it's either his uncle's or his dad's old FJ Holden in the front yard of one of the houses as well. Like, he went and the research he did was incredible, so it was so accurate.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, well, it's highly appreciated, and Looney's once again worth checking out. Just thinking, might have to speak to you off air and stuff. Maybe I can do like a bonus episode or something for just reviewing and discussing it. That'd be cool just to go through Cul-de-sac.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, anytime.
Excellent. Well, that pretty much wraps it for this episode. Andrew, a huge thank you for your time for both last episode and this episode. I know that you're a busy man and you have family as well, but no, a huge thank you.
No, thank you for having me on, and I'd love to come back anytime.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tap you on the shoulder. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. Next phase, Looney listeners, a couple of other doozies coming up. Episodes 228 and 229. Now, the first episode, topping off next week, is an idle chat, and we're going to be trying to understand and unpack DID. I thought this would be a very interesting segment to do, and having spoken to actually Andrew, one of our Looney members in the community who actually has DID, has a system, Lena, a big shout out to Lena and Doug. Rebecca and I are going to have a look at DID, see where it kind of falls flat a bit in the comics, and how it's interpreted within Moon Knight, and maybe just kind of dispel some misconceptions of DID in general. So, bit of an educational one. And then we will release, hopefully, for US listeners, we'll release it Wednesday night. It will be probably around Thursday. We're going to be reviewing Moon Knight issue 2 by Jed MacKay and Alessandro Cappuccio. So hot off the press. Once it gets released, once it drops on Wednesday, hopefully we'll have a review up shortly after there. So catch Rebecca and myself for that one next week. Finally, as mentioned, patreon.com/ITK Moon Knight, plenty of incentives. Please check out the webpage and consider becoming a member as well. Hello Headphones, if you use the code ITK Moon Knight, you'll get 10% off their online store. So anyone needing headphones, please consider that and use that code. Also, Dreamland Comics in Illinois, if you're there, use the code MOON to get 20% off their store. As well, we're affiliate members with Entertainment Earth, so any of your toy action figure needs. Andrew, are you a action figure collector or
It depends. I have a few. I have a couple of Moon Knight ones, and I've got some obscure horror ones and things like that. And
Yes.
and the odd Funko Pop as well, as we all do these days.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Well, yep. Affiliate member of Entertainment Earth. And to be honest, Andrew, that's more for US, I think. Again, the postage from Entertainment Earth to Aussies is a bit large, let's just say that. But anyway, if you're a US listener, please consider it. And finally, we are part of the collective. So we're part of this repository of comic-based comic character podcasts. Really great. It's all informal. So basically, if you search hashtag #TheCollectiveNet on Twitter, hopefully that will spring one of these great shows that we're all affiliated with. So a shout out to DCAU, the DC Animated Universe podcast, hosted by Alan and Rebecca, and also a big shout out to, say, Happiness in Darkness podcast. It's an Italian podcast hosted by DJ Nick, all to do with superhero movies. Fantastic stuff there. So check it all out. Finally, you can contact us on email at idkmoonnight@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Discord. Get vocal. We have websites. Our own website is coming soon. Patreons, that will come soon because, Andrew, sorry, we hit the Patreon mark there. Able to start up our own website, which is, we're very happy to do. So that's coming soon. And on Podchaser. And incidentally, if you, leave a review on Podchaser or on Apple Podcasts, that would be hugely appreciated. It just helps us get out there a bit further. Anyway, Andrew, why not, since I still have you here? I've got like a little moniker that I sign off the show with every time. Can I kindly ask you send us off to the ether?
Certainly. May Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night.
Catch you later, everyone.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.